Greetings, fellow slayers and newcomers alike. Today we are creating the ultimate Death Domain Cleric pure build in Baldur's Gate 3. The most vile subclass of the Cleric, utilizing necrotic damage, raising undead minions, and really just being the Cleric version of a Death Knight. The Death Domain not only relies on spells and utility, but they also love to join the front line and use melee attacks to cleave face from body. A very fun combination of abilities and a very fun playstyle. In this video, I'm going to walk you through each level, what we unlock, how to use it, and by the end you'll have the knowledge to turn your Cleric into a god. As always, if you have any suggestions to improve this build or requests for future content, leave a comment below. Written builds and guides on Patreon, channel membership for early access to videos, welcome to Purge Evil, thank you for stopping by, let's get into it. Character creation in level 1. Before we begin, some important items to note. Potion of Everlasting Vigor in Act 2 for a permanent +2 bonus to strength. Make sure to take a Starion to Araj and Moonrise Towers. Necromancy of Thay. This will give you the Dance Macabre Ghouls to summon in Act 3, among other abilities, and will also give you a Forbidden Knowledge. The Mirror of Loss to gain a permanent +2 bonus to Wisdom. If you can't succeed the check, Forbidden Knowledge can be sacrificed. I recommend reading the Baldur's Gate 3 wiki for a detailed description. I'll provide a link directly to this page below. And finally, the Hag's Hair, for an optional +1 bonus to Constitution. If you do decide to obtain the Hag's Hair, you can use your second or third feat to gain Resilience Constitution, and I'll mention this later in the video when necessary. Make sure to stick around for the gear section because this build has a massive amount of options to choose from and look forward to throughout the game. Your race, background, and skills can be personal preference. In my opinion, the best race for the Death Domain would be Drow, simply because we gain Darkness, which fits the Death Domain quite well, and we wouldn't be able to obtain standard darkness otherwise. Of course, the Death Domain fits perfectly for Evil Shadowheart as well, and this has essentially become my go-to subclass for her, at least for the first part of the game. For the purposes of this video, I will describe the Seldarine Drow Death Domain Cleric. This comes with several benefits, the main ones first including you have advantage against being charmed and immunity to magical sleep. You also gain proficiency in perception checks and can use the cantrip Dancing Lights. At level 3 you gain Fairy Fire, then at level 5 you gain Darkness, which aside from the other benefits and theme is the main reason for taking Drow in this case. As a Death Domain Cleric, you have martial weapon proficiency and you are the Reaper. This allows you to select 2 targets with your necromancy cantrips. This is straight up some of the best action economy you can have right at the beginning of the game, and it just feels badass and satisfying. It's also just extremely nice to be able to finish 2 enemies off at the same time, especially if you're surrounded or playing solo. This comes in super handy. You can choose between Bone Chill and Toll the Dead for your domain cantrip, and you know we have to take Toll the Dead. This almost acts like Sacred Flame, but for necrotic damage, and requires a Wisdom save instead of Dex, so it's more likely to hit enemies. It deals 1d8 necrotic damage to enemies at full health, and a massive 1d12 to enemies below full health. This increases to an insane 2d12 and 3d12 at levels 5 and 10, and remember, you can use this on 2 targets every time you cast it. Absolutely disgusting. Bone Chill could of course also be taken, and is arguably the safer option, but with less damage. This is because it doesn't require a Wisdom save, and it also applies a condition to the target that prevents them from regaining health for 1 turn, and undead will have disadvantage on attack rolls. It might be better for you and your playstyle, so it's something to keep in mind. And the Bone Chill condition is actually really one of the best conditions to have, especially in the early game. We also gain 2 domain spells, first with False Life. This gives you 7 temporary HP and another +5 for each upcast. This has its uses, but I think that spell slot is going to be used much better elsewhere with this build specifically. Second, we have Ray of Sickness, which won't deal as much damage as Inflict Wounds or Guiding Bolt, the main 2 spell attacks, but it does come with the chance to poison the target, which causes them to have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. very decent, and there's also some gear that synergizes with poison as well throughout the game. I'm not going to bother with telling you which spells to keep prepared because they can be changed at any time throughout the game to suit your needs for your specific situation or encounter. I will, however, leave a comment below with a list of my most used spells with this build. Spells would take a huge amount of time to talk about, so let me know in the comments if you want a video of me explaining and ranking all spells in the game. I know it's been done before here on YouTube, but I've never done it myself, and if it's something you guys want, definitely either leave a comment or simply just like the video to let me know. I definitely wouldn't mind doing that. For the cantrips, you know we first have to take Bursting Sinew. This is Corpse Explosion, and it deals 1d10 piercing damage in a 3-meter radius. It's also a necromancy cantrip, so yes, you can even double cast it. Divinity Original Sin 2 fans will love this one, and anybody else who wants to further their grotesque ways as a Death Domain cleric. For the other two cantrips, make sure to take Guidance and Resistance for extra bonuses in dialogue checks. As my deity, I chose Kelemvor with the Acolyte background for proficiency in Religion and Insight. For the skills, I chose History and Persuasion, since in my case, I'll be playing solo. Again, these are completely personal preference, this is just what I chose. And finally, for starting stats, we have Strength at 16, Dex at 12, Constitution at 14, Intelligence at 8, Wisdom at 16, and Charisma at 8. We will either end up with 18 or 20 Strength and 20 or 22 Wisdom. You could also end up with 16 Constitution somewhere in there as well. Level 2. Here we first gain Channel Divinity Touch of Death, which uses a Channel Divinity charge instead of a spell slot, and these charges reset on short rest. With Touch of Death, whenever you make a melee attack, whether it be with a weapon or a spell like Inflict Wounds, you can use your Channel Divinity charge to deal a nice chunk of bonus necrotic damage equal to 5 plus 2 times your cleric level. This comes in extremely useful for high HP enemies or high priority ones, and is another very satisfying ability to utilize. This is the type of thing that makes me want a multi-class Death Domain with a Paladin, but I digress. We'll save that one for another video. We also gain Turn Undead, which uses a Channel Divinity charge as well and causes undead creatures in an 18-meter radius to be turned, which forces them to flee from the caster for 3 turns and do nothing else. This is a really powerful ability come level 5, and it will also deal a massive 4d6 radiant damage to those undead that have been turned, and this is not only extremely useful during Act 2, but for specific parts of Act 3 as well. Level 3. Level 2 spells are now unlocked, and as a drow we gain Fairy Fire to use once per long rest. This creates an area that gives advantage on attacks against all creatures in the area. Not one I use often, but it does have its uses. Think making multiple advantaged attack rolls on those targets using only one attack like a cleave or a fireball, that type of thing. Really not extremely necessary though. First domain spell is Blindness, another one that I don't use often, but it is a pretty heavy debuff, so it may come in useful for you against a particularly tough enemy. It also doesn't use concentration, which is really nice. Second domain spell is Ray of Enfeeblement. This one's pretty good, but another that is used in specific situations, and even then there may be better options. This will cause a target to deal half damage with their strength attacks. Usually you can just use command to make an enemy drop their weapon so they don't deal much damage anyways, but sometimes they're unarmed, and that's when this can be really helpful, though again, it's still pretty niche. Level 4. Here we gain another cantrip, which will be none other than Blade Ward for physical resistance, and our first feat. For most players, you're going to want to simply take ability improvement for a +2 boost to wisdom. If playing solo, I actually take Resilience Constitution here first and foremost, and then go obtain the Hag's Hair. This is just my personal preference. Most people would likely opt for the ability improvement, but we do seem to be able to land attacks just fine for now, and if you're playing solo, holding those concentration spells are a lot more crucial. Level 5. Now at level 5, we get quite the boost in power, first unlocking level 3 spells, which means you can now use Spirit Guardians, which most of the time is going to be your best use of concentration for offense, aside from the Darkness playstyle. This spell is easily one of the most devastating and satisfying spells in the game, and you'll never want to not have it again after trying it. It's just so good. As a drow at this level, we gain the previously mentioned darkness, which I will say every time I mention this spell, the entire game can be completed from within a cloud of darkness with little to no effort, even on honor mode. It heavily obscures everyone within and blinds them as well. On top of this, ranged attacks cannot penetrate the darkness. There are several ways to gain blind immunity or the ability to see in magical darkness, which completely allows you to exploit these conditions, as you'll not only be able to see in the darkness, you'll be able to make ranged attacks into or out of it if need be. This will give you one of the biggest advantages you could ever have in this game in pretty much any situation. Darkness can last for 10 turns, and there will be several gear pieces we can obtain that will allow us to see through it. This is also where Turn Undead gains Destroy Undead, and we gain 2 domain spells as well. First domain spell is Animate Dead, so you can lean into RP even more and begin raising undead minions. You can summon either a skeleton that uses a bow or a zombie that melees, and these deal decent extra damage and also offer another head for enemies to target other than you. At higher levels, you can summon even stronger minions like flying ghouls or even several minions at once. As you can see, the Death Domain Cleric can make several uses of a corpse. Second domain spell is the very flavorful Vampiric Touch. Extremely useful for when you need to regain health, as it leeches health from the target while dealing necrotic damage. Inflict wounds would still deal more damage, but Vampiric Touch can be recast for 10 turns without spending a spell slot so long as you maintain concentration, which makes it incredibly powerful, especially when you're low on spell slots and or potions. Definitely one of my favorites. If you plan to obtain the Hag's Hair and haven't done so already, here is your reminder to do so. Level 6. Moving on, we gain our second Channel Divinity charge, and this will be the last one we obtain when leveling. However, there is an amulet in Act 3 that will grant you a third charge. Remember, these recharge on short rest, so you'll now be able to get 4 uses per long rest out of Touch of Death or Turn Undead. We also gain Inescapable Destruction, which is a very nice passive as it causes our attacks to completely ignore necrotic resistance. Level 7. Now here we gain level 4 spells and also 2 level 4 domain spells. First up is Blight, which is a nasty 8d8 necrotic damage dealer that deals maximum damage to plants but doesn't affect undead or constructs. This one is quite powerful. Second is Death Ward, which turns you into an undead minion yourself, preventing you from dying or going down, instead regaining 1 HP when you reach 0, similar to the undead enemies we fight throughout the game. I don't use this much, but it is super thematic and can actually be a lifesaver. Level 8. Now here we unlock Divine Strike Necrotic, which simply causes our weapon attacks to deal an extra 1d8 necrotic damage once per turn. Solid and satisfying. And remember, this is doubled if you land a crit. This is also where we gain our second feat, and you'll have 2 options here. Our first option is to simply take ability improvement for a +2 bonus to wisdom. If you took the Hag's Hair, you could otherwise get Resilience Constitution to buff that to 16, and heavily increase your chance to maintain concentration. By this point, you should be in or entering Act 2, and you should make it a point to travel to Moonrise Towers with Astarion and speak to Araj to obtain the Potion of Everlasting Vigor for a permanent +2 bonus to strength. Level 9. We now unlock level 5 spells, including the disgusting Insect Plague, which is one of my personal favorites and deals some massive damage. My other favorite being Flame Strike, though it's not as thematic, it does deal satisfying damage as well. This is also the final level for domain unlocks. First domain spell is Cloud Kill, one of the strongest area spells in the game. This deals a whopping 5d8 poison damage per turn in a 6-meter radius. This Cloud of Doom also heavily obscures creatures within it, and there will be gear we can obtain that can make great use of this mechanic. This thing is nasty. Second, we gain the often overlooked Contagion. I think mainly it's left behind because there's so many options, usually far better options to choose from, especially with the use of a level 4 spell slot. Either way, I rate this spell and I think it can actually be really good, but it is a bit difficult to execute. I won't go into the various diseases it can inflict, but there are 6 different diseases, and to actually give one of these diseases to an enemy, a minimum of 3 turns will have to pass. On each of these turns, the target will make a Constitution save. If it saves 3 times, the disease is not inflicted and the target is fine. On the other hand, if it fails the save 3 times, it will then contract the disease you selected. While all of this is going on, the target has disadvantage on attack rolls and checks due to being poisoned. Anything that debuffs the target's constitution is going to help this spell heaps to succeed. Contagion does not require concentration, so it can be fun to play around with, especially being that we are the grotesque Death Domain Cleric. Level 10. Moving on, we first gain another cantrip, and I will recommend either Produce Flame or Thaumaturgy. If you're the party face or playing solo, I recommend Thaumaturgy outright. Next, we gain Divine Intervention, in which you call upon your god for assistance, and this can only be used once per playthrough, so make sure to make it count. There are several options to choose from, the best uses in my opinion either being the massive 8d10 radiant damage AoE attack with a 15-meter radius that only affects enemies, or the ability to summon the Devotee's Mace, which is a very powerful weapon that I'll mention in the gear section. You can also revive allies as if they had long rested, or gain camp supplies, which also includes healing potions and elixirs. The choice is yours. Level 11. At level 11, we gain level 6 spells, and these spells can be extremely powerful, not to mention the crazy upcast on spells like Inflict Wounds. I'll mention a few of my favorites. Planner Binding allows you to summon a Cambion, Diva, or Jinn, which are super powerful, controllable companions. Harm deals a ridiculous 14d6 necrotic damage and reduces the target's maximum HP by the damage dealt, but not below 0, and this condition is considered a disease. Create Undead allows you to summon a mummy from a corpse. This has abilities to frighten enemies, a multi-attack that deals quite a chunk of damage and can also frighten, and they can also reduce enemies' max HP and make it so they can't heal. This thing can be quite powerful. And also, Hero's Feast is an honorable mention and is usually a big recommendation for builds with minions. We'll also be in Act 3 by now, so you'll be getting or may have already gotten the Dance Macabre Ghouls, which benefit quite nicely from this spell. Level 12. Now for our final level, we simply gain a feat, and this will either be ability improvement or resilience constitution depending on your previous choices. The ability improvement can either be used to increase strength or wisdom by 2. Remember, here in Act 3 you can use the Mirror of Loss to increase any ability by 2, and I would definitely recommend this to be wisdom. This is the point at which you can either end up with 20 strength and 20 wisdom, or 18 strength and 22 wisdom. The choice is yours, and whether you like to melee often or not. If you're more so just casting and using spells, I'd definitely go for the wisdom. Personally, I choose strength, but that's just my way of playing. Gear. Locations of all gear can easily be found on Patreon or the wiki. I will not be including Radiating Orb gear because it is anti-thematic. This build will use one-handed weapons plus shield, but using a two-handed weapon plus Great Weapon Master can be extremely fun as well, though you will need to sacrifice a feat. Something to consider. I've also listed some offhand melee weapons for those inclined. Okay, for Act 1 gear we have the Diadem of Arcane Synergy, the Shade Spell Circlet, Haste Helm, Shadow of the Menza Berenzin, Spider Silk Armor, Adamantine Scale Mail, Dark Justiciar Mail, Abyss Beckoners, Daredevil Gloves, Gloves of Baneful Striking, Gloves of Dexterity, Gloves of Power, Gloves of the Growling Underdog, Boots of Genial Striding, Boots of Speed, Disintegrating Nightwalkers, Boots of Striding, Vital Conduit Boots, the Deathstalker Mantle, Amulet of Branding, Broodmother's Revenge, Pearl of Power Amulet, Periapt of Wound Closure, the Spectator Eyes, Caustic Band, Crusher's Ring, Fetish of Calarduran Smooth Hands, Ring of Arcane Synergy, Ring of Protection, Strange Conduit Ring, Absolute's Warboard, Adamantine Shield, Safeguard Shield, Witchbreaker, Ritual Dagger for the offhand, Susur Dagger for the offhand, Wargfang for the offhand and because reasons, Defender Flail, Lorethian's Wrath, Valor Alluve, Leviatar's Scourge, Shattered Flail, Zionide, Sword of Screams. Knife of the Undermountain King, offhand. Faithbreaker. Cantrell's Aspiration. Spell Thief. Titan String Bow. Bow of Awareness. Hunting Shortbow. Act 2 Gear. Circle of Bones. Circlet of Mental Anguish. Fistbreaker Helm. Covert Cowl. Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Dark Justiciar Helmet. Flawed Helldusk Helmet. Dark Justiciar Halfplate, very rare. Dark Justiciar Gauntlets, both versions. Gloves of Battle Mage's Power. Poisoner's Gloves. Dark Justiciar Boots. Cloak of Protection. Derivation Cloak. Flesh Melter Cloak. Spellcrux Amulet. Strange Tendril Amulet. Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet. Eversight Ring. Killer's Sweetheart. Ring of Exalted Marrow. Ring of Free Action. Ring of Twilight. Shadowblade Ring. Shadow Cloaked Ring. Shifting Corpus Ring. Absolute's Protector. Justiciar's Great Shield. Ketheric Shield. Sentinel Shield. Shield of Devotion. Ritual Dagger of Shar for the offhand. Mercolite Scourge. Blade of Oppressed Souls. Cruel Sting. Infernal Rapier. Justiciar's Scimitar. Thornblade. Render of Mind and Body. Slicing Shortsword. Sword of Clutching Umbra. Sword of Life-Stealing. Shar's Spear of Evening. Ketheric's Warhammer. Darkfire Shortbow. Act 3 Gear. Hood of the Weave. Mask of Soul Perception. Helm of Balduran. Saravok's Horned Helmet. Armor of Agility. Flame Enameled Armor. Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength. Martial Exertion Gloves. Quick Spell Gloves. Unwanted Masterwork Gauntlets. Blackguard's Gauntlets. Legacy of the Masters. The Reviving Hands. Helldusk Boots. Boots of Persistence. Cloak of Displacement. Cloak of the Weave. Nymph Cloak. Amulet of Greater Health. Amulet of the Devout. Spell Savant Amulet. Cryptolord Ring. Ring of Regeneration. Burnished Ring. Shield of the Undevout. Viconia's Walking Fortress. Bloodthirst for the offhand. Rhapsody for the offhand. Stillmaker for the offhand. Flail of Ages. Blackguard's Sword. Handmaiden's Mace. Infernal Mace. Hollow Staff. Marco Heshkir. Staff of Cherished Necromancy. Whoa. Duelist's Prerogative. Crimson Mischief for the offhand. Infernal Spear. Hellfire Engine Crossbow. Hellrider Longbow. The Dead Shot. And for the gear you see me wearing in the video. Dark Justiciar Helmet. Cloak of Protection. Dark Justiciar Halfplate. Dark Justiciar Gauntlets. Helldusk Boots. Amulet of the Devout. Strange Conduit Ring. Shadow Cloaked Ring. Shar's Spear of Evening. Viconia's Walking Fortress. And the Dead Shot. Also, Elixir of Viciousness. If you made it to this point in the video, you are now obligated to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you thought this build was trash, you are now obligated to dislike the video and come up with something better in the comments. Both of you are now obligated to ring the bell so as to not miss out on future content. Written builds and guides are available on Patreon, and by supporting you not only help keep the channel alive, you directly support my dreams of game dev to hopefully make some of the best games ever created. That is truly the end goal, and I'm deeply thankful for each and every one of you. You can also support with channel memberships for early access to videos, and the Discord is linked below if you want to connect. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, Purge evil.
Oh, yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah.